ever wondered about tariffs? You ever wondered why nearly every nation, in fact, every nation around the world imposes tariffs on goods coming into their nation? And you're thinking, well, why do they do that? Why do we impose tariffs on things that come into our country? Now, let's just take tires, for example. So when tires are made in China, they sell the tires here, and they ship them to the United States, and they sell them here at 20, 30, maybe even 50% of what that same tire would cost in the United States. And you're saying, well, that's because the American manufacturers are pocketing all this money. But they're really not. Both companies, both the Chinese manufacturer and the American manufacturer, make about the same amount of profit off of those tires. The reason the Chinese are able to sell them so cheaply is because their material cost and labor cost, and of course the cost of the factory itself and the machines, are much lower than they are here in the United States. So therefore they can sell it cheaper and make the same amount of profit as the American company does when it sells it for more money. So the companies are making the same amount of profit. It's not that the Chinese are making less money. They're making the same money. So when you impose a tariff on Chinese goods, what you're doing is you're leveling the playing field. You're saying, okay, Mr. American business, because you have to pay more for labor because obviously Americans make a lot more money than the Chinese do. You have to pay more for materials because Americans make more money. The materials, the cost of buying the materials is more because they have to be paid more to make the materials or mine the materials or grow them, whatever they're doing. So the materials are more expensive here and the labor's more expensive here. And then of course, what else is more expensive? The building's more expensive, the equipment's more expensive. And here's a big deal, and this is a big deal. In China, there is no such thing as workman's compensation insurance. They don't have to worry about that. There's no such thing as liability insurance. They don't have to worry about that. It's a communist society. They don't have to worry about those kind of insurances. So, and those are big, big costs in manufacturing. If you have a manufacturing plant with, say, 200 workers or 1,000 workers, the workman's compensation insurance on that is really expensive. So the pass-through into the product costs a lot of money. So the reason you put tariffs on imported products is to level the playing field so that American companies can thrive, as do the Chinese companies or the Uruguayan company or the Vietnamese company, because they have a leg up on us because everything's a lot cheaper over there than it is over here. Now you say, well, why can't things be cheaper over here? Well, because people demand more money per hour and because they want new cars and new houses and Gucci shoes and everything else, so they demand more money. And then, of course, by the time you throw taxes and insurance on there that, again, don't exist in China, you wind up with this huge deficit that they don't have to pay that our businesses do. So you think, well, so the Chinese send the stuff over here, an American company sells it, an American company makes the money. Well, isn't that the same as making the money? No, it's not. Because the problem is, it takes far less people to sell it than it does to manufacture it. So if you lose your manufacturing to a foreign country, now over here that product would maybe employ, let's say 50 people, and then the manufacturer would employ, say, 1,000 people. So you can see the difference in the impact in the total economy. That's why you have to have tariffs in the first place when you have that inequity. Now, the reason that they're imposing the tariffs here that Donald Trump said, we're going to hit you with a tariff, is because of just what I just said. And all he's doing is he's leveling the playing field. Now, what he tells the Chinese is, listen, you can lower the tariff to zero if you want. You just have to have our products available there at a zero tariff. Why do they charge a tariff on our products? Because our products actually do cost more money in China than they do in the United States. Or the Chinese products. So let's say, I'm just going to put this out there, let's say American tires, right? So if we try to ship a Goodyear tire into China, the Chinese tire is still cheaper than our tire. Even without tariffs, our tires are going to be more expensive because of just what I said. But here's the difference. What happens is the American manufacturer has a better quality. And there are Chinese that would love to have a better quality product than the tires that they make over there. Not that they're saying they're not trying to make good tires. They just don't have the technology and things that we have here in order to create a better tire. So they want the better tires over there, so they would buy American tires if those American tires were reasonably priced. But instead, American tires are allowed to be sold there, but they're jacked up with these tariffs. And the Chinese government knows where that point is. Let's say, and let's just use as an example, let's say the Chinese tire in China is $100. And the American tire comes in, and it would come in at the same price, at the higher price because it's better quality. Say it was going to come in at $150. The Chinese government knows that the Chinese people that were going to buy the tire, they'll still buy the tire at $150. That's still doable. It's only $50 a tire more. They last a while. They would still do it. So to make sure that they don't buy the American tires, they put a tariff on it to take that tire to, say, $250, which puts it out of reach of most of the Chinese. So the Americans, we still do sell tires there, but we sell very little tires there because only the more wealthy Chinese can buy those tires. And if the Chinese have the money, they'll still pay the $250 because the quality is that much better. So that's why when Donald Trump says, and then anybody in their right mind would say, listen, let's make it the same. If you charge me 10%, I charge your goods 10%. The Chinese don't want that because they know that their goods can't live up to our goods in their own market. And therefore, if they didn't, that's going to shrink their economy because they're not selling the stuff just like I'm talking about. If a Chinese good comes here and an American sells it, the American makes a small sliver of what was made on that product. The rest of it goes back into the Chinese economy. If a product is built in the United States and you buy that product built in the United States, then all of the profit stays in the United States economy. The people that made it get paid here. They spend their money here. The people that made the materials, that made the product, that money stays here, so forth and so on. All the way down the line, all the money stays here in the U.S. The Chinese know that if the Americans only bought American products and all the money stayed in the United States, the Chinese, they'd be living in the Stone Age. They couldn't afford to build power plants or anything else. And they'd have to go back to what they were doing before, which was plundering and stealing and all the things that they were doing before. So what is the reality? The reality is that tariffs are a good thing. Tariffs allow American businesses to compete with the cheap Chinese goods. Tariffs level the playing field. Tariffs make a good economy. And that's not something that Donald Trump has known. Tariffs have been around since the American government has been around, since things were being imported from other countries. And when other countries didn't move forward with paying their workers more money and all the things because they're communist countries, realize in China, the workers have to work. It's not like they get a choice. When you're in China, you have to have a job doing something. You're not allowed to not work in some way. There is no such thing as not working in China. So, and all these people that think that communism is so great, well, I beg you to go live in China for a little while, and then when the government finds out that you're not working because you're living off some inheritance, they're going to take that inheritance. Anyway, just wanted to talk to you about tariffs. This road is really bumpy. That's why I'm jarring all around in my truck cab. Anyway, have a good day. Thank you for watching.